Who dat to the Who Dat Nation? Welcome to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and we have arrived to week 10 of the new NFL season. Well, I guess I could stop saying new. We're 10 weeks in. And so we are heading into week 10 as the New Orleans Saints travel to Minnesota to take on the Vikings this Sunday, 12 noon on Fox. This ought to be an exciting game. This should be a I'll put it like this. This will be the biggest test thus far for the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, in their 7 games remaining or 8 games remaining, only have 2 teams on the schedule above 500. One being the Detroit Lions, who we played next month, and the other being the Minnesota Vikings. And so this is a, dare I say, big game for the Saints. But every game is. Every game for the Saints is big. But this one here, if the Saints are going to do anything this season, dare I say postseason, any thoughts of winning a division, any thoughts of getting into the playoffs and actually making some noise, this Sunday is key. Now, the Minnesota Vikings are reeling right now. You know, their quarterback, Kirk Cousins, is out. Their star receiver, who everybody down here in Louisiana, New Orleans area know, Justin Jefferson, is out. And so they're starting a quarterback who just got there, about 7 days ago, and got a win nonetheless this past Sunday, which helped us out. We appreciate that. But yeah, there are a lot of factors that would kind of make you focus on the fact the Saints should come out of this game victorious. But unfortunately, games aren't won or lost on paper. You have to play. And in the case of the New Orleans Saints, we got to play. You know, nothing has been super convincing as far as the Saints and their 5-4 record thus far. It hasn't been the most dominant of performances thus far this season. You know, they've underachieved, to say the least. You know, with the exception of the New England Patriots game where they blew the people out the water. But, you know, the New England Patriots are bad. You know, they're a bad team right now. So I can't put any stock on that win, even though we got the win. So, you know, good for us. But coming off a heartfelt 24-17 win over the Chicago Bears this past Sunday in the Superdome, the New Orleans Saints move into sole possession of first place in the NFC South. They will look to win their 3rd consecutive contest heading into the Week 11 bye when they face the Minnesota Vikings this Sunday in Minnesota. The matchup features 2 hungry 5-4 teams that have overcome adversity over the past few weeks. The Minnesota Vikings went down to the wire against the Atlanta Falcons last week, coming away with a 31-28 victory on a Josh Dobbs touchdown pass with 22 seconds remaining in the game. Dobbs entered the game after Vikings rookie quarterback Jalen Hall left his first career start with a concussion. Dobbs had a historic 22-yard scramble on 4th and 7 to extend the Vikings' final drive ahead of the game-winning touchdown pass to wide receiver Brandon Powell. After giving up several big plays early in the second half, the Vikings defense forced back-to-back turnovers late in the third quarter to help secure an early fourth quarter lead. The Falcons' rush attack gashed the Vikings defense late in the game to take a 28-24 lead at the 2-minute warning ahead of the Joshua Dobbs late game heroics. For the Saints last week, quarterback Derek Carr finished with an efficient 25 of 34 passing, 211 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and zero. That's the main stat here. Zero interceptions. Quarterback, and I'm putting quotations up. Quarterback Taysom Hill made significant impacts in the run game and in the passing game, leading the Saints in rushing with 11 carries for 52 yards, tossing a 3-yard touchdown pass to tight end Jawan Johnson, and catching a 2-yard score from Derek Carr himself. With the receiving touchdown, Taysom Hill becomes the first player since quarterback Frank Gilford to have at least 10 career rushing touchdowns, 10 passing touchdowns, and 10 receiving touchdowns. For perspective, Frank Gilford is a well, he was a quarterback, but he is a NFL Hall of Famer. Now, I'm not saying Taysom Hill is going to the Hall of Fame. We'll see about that. I'm just saying that's some good company to be with. Defensively, cornerback Paulson Adebo enjoyed his finest performance in his early career as a New Orleans Saint, finishing with 7 tackles, 5 of them were solo, a career high 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery, and 3 pass defenses. Linebacker Demario Davis added a club best 10 tackles, while his late fourth quarter sack fumble that was recovered by linebacker Pete Warner helped preserve the victory. Defensive end Cam Jordan added 7 tackles and a sack, while safety Marcus May tied his career high with his second interception of the season. The last time these two teams met, which was last year in London. Yeah, it was in London on October the 2nd. The Minnesota Vikings defeated the New Orleans Saints by the score of 28-25 when Vikings kicker Greg Joseph drilled a 47-yard field goal with 24 seconds left to play to preserve the win. Saints kicker Will Lutz tried to tie the score on the final play with a 61-yard attempt, bounced off of the left upright and the crossbar. I remember that. It was crushing because I didn't think he had a chance to even get it there, but he got there and it hit every inch of that field goal and bounced out. But it shouldn't have come as a shock because a few minutes before that he drilled a 60-yarder with I think with 2 minutes left in the game. Drilled it to tie the game. And so that extra yard killed him. It was that 1 yard, I guess, that threw him off. Vikings kicker Greg Joseph, he made 5 field goals that day. 5. Now, this was the first game last season where we saw Andy Dalton start. He went 20 for 28, 236 yards and a touchdown. In that game, the Saints didn't have nothing. They didn't have anybody out there. Of course, Jameis Winston was out. Michael Thomas was out. Alvin Kamara was out. Andrews Pete was out. It was I don't know how they were in that game, to be honest with you, but they were in it. It just came up short at the end. Of course, we all remember their playoff collisions between these two teams. It always ends epically when we play the Vikings. It's never a clear-cut dominant performance, especially in the playoffs. We all remember when we met up, went to the Super Bowl, we had to go through the Minnesota Vikings and Brett Favre, and it came down to Garrett Hartley's kick in overtime to send us to our first Super Bowl that we won, by the way. And also the last 2 playoff appearances between these two teams, the Minnesota Miracle at the last second, which we don't want to talk about, and the overtime win. I think that was in 2020 when Kirk Cousins threw that pass to Kyle Rudolph, I believe, in the corner after he pushed off, and nobody saw that but me, apparently. But whatever. It always comes down to something with these two teams. They just match up the way they match up. It doesn't matter what the record is. They always have a dogfight. And I expect the dogfight this week with this team. When you look at the stats and the rankings of these two teams, they're pretty dead even in some arenas and not too far off in other categories. So let's go through these rankings, NFL league rankings for the Saints and the Vikings. Both teams are 5-4. Scoring average, Saints are 15th in the league with 21.6. The Vikings are 13th in the league with 22.8. Offensive scoring average, the Saints are 8th in the league, 19 points a game, and the Minnesota Vikings are 17th with 21.1 per game. Total offense, Saints are 14th in the league, 343.8 per game, to the Vikings 9th ranked in the league, 354.8. Rushing offense, Saints are 19th, 103.9, to the Vikings 29th with 81.3. Passing offense, Saints are ranked 11th in the league with 239.9, whereas the Vikings are ranked second in the league passing offense with 273.4. Total defense, Saints are ranked 7th in the league. They went down a little bit from last week, but still top 10. 304.3. Vikings are ranked 13th in total defense with 328. Rushing defense, the New Orleans Saints are ranked 17th, giving up an average of 112.3, to the Vikings 12th rank, averaging 102.6. Saints are hurting stopping the run, but a lot of that is kind of deceptive, to be honest with you, because in the last couple of weeks the quarterbacks have been gashing the Saints on the ground. It hasn't been the running game per se, even though there were some games where the running backs were, especially in the first half, were running all over the Saints. It got better in the second half, but I think back to what Trevor Lawrence did. I think he had 70 yards rushing as the quarterback. Last week you had rookie quarterback Tyson Bagent for the Chicago Bears. He ran the ball pretty decent on the Saints. So a lot of that was deceptive. It was broken plays, quarterbacks breaking the pocket and rushing. And so it's a little deceptive, but at the same time, they got to get better at that as well. Passing defense, Saints are ranked 7th in the league with only allowing 192 per game to the Vikings 18th rank passing defense, 225.4. Penalties, Saints have 55 penalties this season with 518 penalty yards. The Vikings 43 penalties with 330 penalty yards. Team leaders for the New Orleans Saints, passing yards, Derek Carr, he has 2,121 passing yards so far this season with 10 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He has a completion rating of 65.5. Our rushing leader on the team is, of course, Alvin Kamara. He has 95 carries for 346 yards and 2 touchdowns so far this season. Receiving leader is Chris Olave with 50 receptions for 563 yards and 2 touchdowns. Over on defense, our leaders on defense, leading tackler on the team is, of course, Demario Davis with 39. Sack leader is Carl Grandison with 5.5. And interception leader is Paulson Adebo with 4 interceptions so far this season. Total first downs, Saints have 177 total first downs. Third down conversions, they are 50 for 134. That's about 37% on third down so far this season. third down conversions, they are 50%. Saints are 6 for 12. And the Saints are a +8 in turnover ratio. That is awesome for this squad. Now let's go over our injury report for this Sunday's matchup against the Vikings. This is the final injury report that was released on Friday evening. We all know that it's subject to change at game time. There are a lot of game time decisions, but this is the official injury report for Friday leading up to the game. We have two players who have been ruled out for this Sunday's matchup. That is running back Kendrick Miller, ankle. He is out. Defensive end Isaac Forsky, quadricep. He has been ruled out. We have one player that is questionable for Sunday's matchup, and that is fullback Adam Patience with a knee injury. He is questionable, although he was a full participant in practice all week. For the Minnesota Vikings, they have one player that is ruled out. That is quarterback Jalen Hall with a concussion. He is still in concussion protocol. He has been ruled out. But they do have a number of players who are either doubtful or questionable for Sunday's matchup. Defensive lineman Dean Lowry, groin, he is doubtful. Linebacker Brian Asamoah, ankle, he is questionable. Tight end TJ Hawkinson, ribs, he is questionable. Wide receiver Justin Jefferson, hamstring, he is questionable, even though they have already said that he is out for this game as well. And wide receiver KJ Osborne, concussion, he is questionable. And guard Chris Reed, no relation, foot, he is questionable for this Sunday's matchup. This, as I said before, I believe this will be it's going to be a tight game. This is going to be one of those scrap your chin scrap on and get ready for the ride type of game. It's going to be physical. I think it's really going to come down to who can stop the run, who can not turn the ball over. So my keys to victory for this Sunday's matchup, Saints have to pretty much play a game similar to what they played against the Chicago Bears this past Sunday. Mistake-free football. They didn't turn the ball over last week, but where they need to improve, the Saints in the second half had an average starting field position of the opponent's 40. That's on the other side of the field. And off of 5 turnovers, you only generated 10 points. We got to do better. They got better in the red zone last week. It was a real good outing in the red zone. I think they were 3 for 4 in the red zone, which is excellent. And also, whenever they made it a point to throw this stat out, whenever Taysom Hill gets the ball more than 7 times, the Saints are 11-0 or 11-1 or something to that effect. Well, I think it's 12-1 now. And so that's pretty easy there. Get him the ball. Get him the ball at least 8 times. Saints should win. Defensively, Saints have to get this quarterback breaking the pocket, running for 20 yards and all this other stuff. They got to get that under control because it's starting to become a habit. I've seen it 2 to 3 weeks in a row, and it's getting disgusting. I mean, we're not playing Lamar Jackson and Justin Hurts, or Jalen Hurts. If they did that, I can live with it because this is what they do. But that's not who you're playing. There's no reason these quarterbacks should be running all over the Saints like this. Gap integrity, people. Let's get it together. Get your spies there. Make sure that your quarterback don't break the pocket. And as we seen last week, Joshua Dobbs, he has 0 problems putting his head down and running. And I expect him to do a lot of that, just like he did last week, because he just got there. He doesn't know the playbook that much, so he's going to rely on his pure talent. He's going to rely on his skill set um, as he gets acclimated into this offense. So I don't expect him to sit back there and dissect them because he's not familiar with the team yet. And so he's going to rely a lot on his talent, on his personal skills, and that is running the ball. So keep that in front of you. You should have success this Sunday. Once again, I'm not picking. I'm doing good by not picking. And so I'm gonna hold on to that and not pick in hopes of not breaking this streak. So I'm hoping for a Saints win. And I think the Saints can pull this out. But like I said, it's gonna be close. It's gonna come down tight to the wire. Uh and as always, we have to stay ahead of our division. We just saw the Carolina Panthers this past Thursday lose to those same Chicago Bears that we beat last week. And so they are hurting right now. Carolina is no threat to us, but Atlanta is, and especially the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are, because Tampa Bay already holds a victory over us this season. So we have to stay ahead of them. Games like this, we definitely have to win, especially going into a bye after this game. You don't want to go into a bye with a loss. You don't. You want to be able to build on something for this week you're going to have off. So I'm hoping and praying for a win, for a victory. We shall see. I would like to know, what are your thoughts about this upcoming matchup between the Minnesota Vikings? Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look me up on all social media platforms. Just look up the KB Radio Network, as well as the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube. Subscribe and like this video if you don't mind. Also, boys and girls, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Dome Patrol here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this preview of the upcoming matchup between our New Orleans Saints and their Minnesota Vikings this Sunday, 12 noon on Fox. Can't wait to speak to you after the game when we recap, hopefully, a Saints victory. As always, I'm going to be screaming, "Who dat?"